Donald Trump is terrified as November is coming, and it's coming quick, and Donald Trump is going to get impeached, and Donald Trump and his despicable regime will be subject to massive amounts of Democratic investigations, and Trump and his regime are absolutely terrified. How terrified is Donald Trump about being impeached? Well, a criticism of Donald Trump by an active duty U.S. airman, Major Jason Watson, led to Donald Trump arresting Watson again yesterday, basically charging him with something called Article 88 under the United States Military Code for making contemptuous statements about Donald Trump, because Major Jason Watson said that Donald Trump should be impeached. And now Donald Trump's like, get him. You can't say contemptuous things about me. That's so mean. And he said it on Aaron Burnett show on CNN. He said it on a podcast. And then he said it before that on the steps of the Capitol in early July. I want to take a look at that. But as Donald Trump is going after a U.S. airman for saying Trump should be impeached for behaving in a traitorous manner, then Donald Trump behaves again in a traitorous manner. Donald Trump spent all day attacking America's closest ally, Canada, who Donald Trump attacks more than basically any country. And then Donald Trump started posting these weird photos of himself and Kim Jong-un. Like throughout the day yesterday, it was just photo after photo of Kim Jong-un, while in North Korea, they're mocking the hell out of Donald Trump. Kim Jong-un's sister, who has one of the top military and civilian positions in North Korea, she's out there saying, we're uninterested in this behavior. We're not really sure what he's doing. We're just going to focus on our national prerogatives. So then back at home, this is the CNN article, Trump criticism leads to rare criminal charges for Air Force officer who called for impeachment. And it's Major Jason Watson. Let me show you what he said when he was on Aaron Burnett, just so you can see for yourself. Here, play this clip.
What is happening with President Trump is not normal. He has failed us. And not only is he a failure as president, he is flagrantly violating the Constitution, breaking the law, engaged in rampant corruption, and is killing Americans.
And so here's how the article describes what went down. A U.S. airman who was arrested twice, once on the steps of the U.S. Capitol while calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump, was officially criminally charged Monday for his comments, according to a charging document obtained by CNN. Major Jason Watson faces the following charges under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. According to the document, 3 violations of Article 88 for alleged contemptuous remarks about Donald Trump, for what you just heard there, 5 violations of Article 92 for allegedly disobeying orders, and 2 violations of Article 133 for alleged conduct unbecoming of an officer. The rare Article 88 charge are connected to the Air Force officer's June interview with the Defenders of Our Republic on Substack, and what you just saw there on August 17th. He was first arrested in July. His lawyer tells CNN that his client was offered to remain in pretrial confinement, an action analogous to a denial of bond in civilian court pending legal action against him. And you heard what he said now that he's in pretrial confinement now. But before that, you heard him say, not only is Trump a failure as a president, he is flagrantly violating the Constitution every day. In July, Air Force Secretary Troy Mank said in a social media post that he expected all airmen to comply with all laws and policies, government, personal conduct, political participation, and wear the uniform. You know what I expect? And I think what the service members' families expect and what our service members expect, that at a bare minimum, they will be fed. At a bare minimum, they will have the basic living conditions in order to make it through the day. And here on the MeidasTouch Network, Aaron Parnas, who's affiliated with the MeidasTouch Network, has done some powerful reporting, speaking with the service member families about the horrific treatment on our military bases, on the aircraft carriers, on the supporting ships to the aircraft carriers. Stars and Stripes has done incredible reporting. Most recently, when they fired their editor-in-chief, they fired their publisher, and they fired the writer of that article about how horrific the Trump regime is treating the service member families in Bahrain. The incompetent, the corrupt, despicable leadership by the Trump regime has caused our military, despite $1 trillion budget, to run out of weapons. We're out of interceptors, as you know. We're out of offensive weapons. The ATACMS, we're low on Tomahawks, Navy destroyer anti-ballistics. Our military bases have been destroyed in the Middle East. The security umbrellas all throughout the world have been destroyed. Donald Trump wants to dismantle our aircraft carrier electromagnetic propulsion system because he likes steam catapults. Donald Trump hates stealth. He doesn't like drones. He likes the way battleships look from 1920 to 1940. So he wants to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on Trump-class nuclear battleships instead of focusing on, I don't know, the way modern warfare was fought. In fact, the Trump regime fired Army Chief of Staff Randy George, General Donahue, Dan Driscoll, the civilian Army Secretary, is leaving. They wanted to focus on modernizing our Army, where you had Hegseth talking about yesterday. Did you hear what Hegseth said? Where he was like, we got to focus on training and not trannies, and we got to go back to the basics. I mean, stop with your just spiteful, hateful rhetoric. I mean, it's so utterly horrific how you say, and you just seem so weak and pathetic. Hegseth couldn't even run a nonprofit for veterans, and he treated them like crap. And of course, there were all those allegations about Hegseth, and Hegseth has to walk around with his wife, who's basically running the show, according to lots of leaked reporting, because Hegseth can't control himself, and she's at all these meetings, and people are like, why is your wife following you around? It's like super weird, man. But here's what Hegseth said yesterday. Play this clip.
Where we're restoring the warrior ethos, and that means a focus, an unrelenting, uncompromising focus on lethality. It means no more DEI. It means no more trannies, just training. It means colorblind, gender neutral, merit-based, back to basics across the board, no matter if you're carrying a rifle or you're working on the plant floor.
And so while Donald Trump was posting Kim Jong-un photos, you also had Ivanka posing for photos in Costa Rica. New York Post says Ivanka Trump shows off her surfing skills during the family Costa Rica trip. Fantastic to see the Trump regime and the Trump family making so much money, getting so rich. Trump's out there with Natalie gallivanting around the world, hiding in catering containers, while the American people are now facing the highest gas prices, the highest diesel prices in American history. Americans can't afford rent. They can't afford homes. They can't afford groceries. Healthcare has been ripped away for them. But everybody, Ivanka surfing in Costa Rica, Jared Kushner and the Kushner family, they're working on deals to buy the Lakers. They're working on deals to buy Albanian islands, turning them into Trumpenstein Islands. It's so damn sick. And, I see Ivanka in the water right there, and I think about what's going on in other waterways that, the American people are focused on, as Donald Trump says, we control the Strait of Hormuz. It's ours. We control it. 3 government U.S. officials have told Barak Ravid, reporting from Tel Aviv, that the United States has brought 16 million barrels in the past day. All freaking lies. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. There's been the least crossings ever happening right now. We are at an all-time low. We're basically hitting the salt caverns of our strategic petroleum reserves right now. We run out of strategic petroleum in 41 days. It's just gone right now. And the Trump regime wants to pretend everything's great. You have Scott Bessent, economic D-Day. We're going to make Iran pay. Well, Iran responded. Yesterday, Iran struck another ship in the Strait of Hormuz, right by that southern Oman route, destroyed a ship. But more significantly than even the fact that Iran struck a ship in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday was what the Houthis did. Obviously, the Houthis of Yemen, allied with Iran, part of the axis of resistance, along with Hezbollah groups in Somalia, Iraqi militia groups that are actually embedded in the Iraqi army. But the Houthis used a missile. They claim it was a ballistic missile. Seems like it may be a cruise missile. Regardless of what it was, it had a distance of 1,000 kilometers, and it struck a Saudi Arabian tanker. Now, all of the military sources that I've been talking about say that this strike by the Houthis yesterday, 1,000-kilometer hit, not that close to the area where the Houthis actually control in Yemen and where they hit this tanker has been a massive wake-up call as well. And it was done intentionally in coordination with Iran. And Iran is showing that if it wanted to, it could very easily have destroyed the USS Abraham Lincoln. It could have very easily have destroyed the USS George H.W. Bush. Now you have the USS George Washington replacing the Abraham Lincoln. And Iran does not want to do that because they know if they did that, it could potentially build some support that doesn't exist in the United States, for the war potentially. So why would they escalate and hit these super carriers when Donald Trump is a weapon of mass destruction, destroying the United States? And what Trump is doing is causing massive pain, suffering, and trauma in our military bases and aboard the aircraft carriers. But that Houthi strike is something that military experts that I'm talking to are saying, whoa, they hit 1,000 kilometers. They've got real capabilities, and Iran has real capabilities. But you have Treasury Secretary Bessent, all bluster. He looked so nervous yesterday, too, when he was giving that speech. And he was like, well, the reason that we don't want to implement the D-Day attack right now, the economic D-Day, we don't want to blow up the whole global financial system yet. So we're going to wait a little bit. What are you going to wait for? China's already responded, Bessent, and said, nope, they're not going along with your economic coercion. They've rejected when you said that China needs to work with you to sanction Iran. China's allied with Iran. And all of Iran's allies, are saying, no, we're not going along with you. I'm going to do a video on this morning. The Trump regime did not get a single phone call back from any country at all saying that they would work with the United States for the economic D-Day. When Donald Trump and his regime are spending their time attacking Canada, the closest ally, you think other countries are going to want to lend support to the United States economic D-Day? So then you have headlines like this. Treasury Secretary dodges on U.S. willingness to sanction Chinese bank. Treasury Secretary threatens new sanctions tied to Iran, but isn't following through yet. And you have Iran just mocking the hell out of him. They go, we also congratulate this incompetent man, Bessent, for his extraordinary achievement in creating a multi-billion-dollar deficit, an unprecedented feat in the history of the United States. Operation Epic Fury, Operation Epic Economic Fury, Operation D-Day, Operation Economic Outcast. This is what the Iranian social media accounts are saying. Names that have become farcical shows. They introduce a new name every day. They've given many names that's not easy to remember them all. The last one, D-Day, which did not even live a few days. Let's face it, the result of these operations have affected themselves more. They're just totally mocking the U.S. right now. I want to leave you with this, though. I think this is a big deal. So a guy by the name of Stanley Druckenmiller, and Stanley Druckenmiller, legendary trader, he was Bessent's boss. He hired Bessent originally when Bessent worked in the London office. And Bessent reported to Druckenmiller later. Bessent then went on his own, and then Bessent destroyed all of the funds that Bessent ran. But when he was working for Druckenmiller, who knew what he was doing, this is where Bessent tried to steal the valor or the credit for Druckenmiller and Soros and other people like that. But this is what Stanley Druckenmiller said today in the Wall Street Journal. Opinion. Let the bond market speak. This is what Druckenmiller said. I have spent 5 decades trading on a simple premise. Markets aggregate information no committee possesses, and prices are how that information reaches decision makers. The long-term treasury yield is the most important price in the world. It is also the only fiscal disciplinarian the U.S. has left. Every basis point of artificial yield suppression is a subsidy to procrastination. Return buybacks to their stated purpose. Small, scheduled, off-the-run liquidity operations announced at quarterly refundings, never off-cycle responses to yield levels. Term out the debt honestly and pay the price the market sets. If the 30-year must trade at 5.5% to clear, that isn't a crisis. It is an invoice. Then do the only thing that durably lowers long-term yields. Address the primary deficit. Oh no, they're not capable of doing that, Drunkenmeyer. They have their fake Doge scheme, or Donald Trump saying he's brought in $19.1 trillion when he's brought in zero of that. And he goes, but I did better than Biden. No, you are a liar. You didn't bring in $19.1 trillion. Doge never did anything it was supposed to do. In fact, Doge made things worse. And what Drunken Miller is saying here is that Bessent is involved in a form of central planning that's deeply dangerous, and he continues to try to manipulate the markets, and Bessent acts like he's smarter than the markets, but Bessent is a dum-dum. Bessent is an idiot, and Bessent was unable to run his own funds. After he worked for Drunken Miller on his own, Bessent showed that he can't handle any significant amount of money, $5 billion. So now you want to tap into $1 trillion, the general account of the Treasury Department, and then the broader U.S. economy. You don't know what you're doing, Bessent. And so Bessent tried to manipulate the yen with a euro currency swap. That failed. Bessent tried to do this bond buyback signaling, $2 billion to $4 billion, that he was going to buy back the long-term Treasury notes and then sell more short-term. That failed. And then today he was like, well, I may have $1 trillion from the Treasury general account that I'm going to use. And the market's like, no, you don't know what you're doing. You are an idiot, Bessent. And they have zero respect for this guy. And you actually, I mean, you want to talk briefly about Canada? Prime Minister Carney, before being the prime minister there, was the central banker. He was like the guy of the Bank of Canada, the guy at the person at the Bank of England, the top person, basically the equivalent of the chairman of the Federal Reserve, but for Canada and for England. He was put in these positions during the most difficult times, the Great Recession in Canada of 2008, and then in the UK during Brexit. And he got them through that period of time. So he knows what he's doing. While here in the US, you have Donald Trump flailing and ranting and raving like a lunatic, and Bessent, getting all sweaty and nervous. And I'll remind you what Bessent said before we go. Here, play this clip.
It was an economic D-Day, but D-Day wasn't a threat of an invasion, and the U.S. didn't give a timeline to Germany. So why not impose the sanctions today?
Well, we are giving everyone the opportunity to remedy bad behavior. Why would I want to blow up the global financial system? We believe that it is important to level set and give people a cure period, but they should know that that will move very quickly and that we are serious. Secondary sanctions are a very powerful tool, and
Anyway, there you have it. Ridiculous, right? Hit subscribe. November couldn't come quick enough. And you got Trump flailing and panicking and all of that. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Let's get to 7 million. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, if you want the full story, how democracy got here and how we take it back, pre-order our new book, WTF America, today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.